At this point, the 737 MAX has been in the news for more than a year. But that's not what I want to focus on today. Today we're looking at the future. Today I want to see if airlines will still want to buy the MAX once it's back in the air. Or will the MAX stay on the metaphorical shelf, gathering dust? With the MAX undergoing certification flights in different regions of the world, the type is on the cusp of recertification, meaning that all existing customers can put their MAXs back in the air very soon. That's also good news for any airline that's potentially considering the MAX. The first thing we need to note is that the MAX is not coming back as a compromised aircraft. Most of the fixes are in the software and a few additional sensors. No one's like, hey Boeing, you've got to rework the wing, redesign the engines, strengthen the landing gear. It's still the plane that airlines know and love. It still flies just as long, it's still just as efficient, and seats just as many people. Had these important metrics been compromised on, then the MAX would not have made sense to airlines, given how razor thin their margins are, especially right now. So that's one hurdle down. If an airline wants a fuel-efficient small plane, the MAX is a viable candidate. Now, we have to figure out how airlines feel about the MAX. The type was grounded in March of 2019. At the end of 2019, Boeing's backlog of 737 MAX orders had shrunk by about 183 planes. Most of these cancellations were because of the collapse of the Indian carrier, Jet Airways. They had more than 135 orders for the MAX jet. But cancellations really started to pile up in 2020, right as the global economic scenario started to look bleak. These airlines kept their orders for months and months as the jet was grounded and only canceled them in the face of economic uncertainty. Had they not been confident in the type, we would have seen a lot more cancellations in early 2019. Airlines felt that they could make the MAX work. Now, let's look at history to see how previous MAX-like occurrences have affected airlines and airplanes. The first example that comes to my mind is the DC-10. Early DC-10s had an issue with the cargo door. They tended to open in flight, and this caused two disastrous crashes for the type. An American Airlines DC-10 and a Turkish Airlines DC-10 suffered the same cargo door issue, and the type was grounded. Fixes were made, and the plane was put back into service. The DC-10 was safer after the fix and had a comparable safety record to other planes at that time. But the production of the DC-10 was ended in 1983 due to a lack of orders. The DC-10 was a great plane post its fixes, but the plane had poor fuel economy, and it had a lot of competition from the likes of Boeing and Airbus. I can't imagine that the 1979 oil crisis did the DC-10 any favors. The DC-10 is still in service today with cargo airlines. But that example is a bit old. Let's see if we can find anything that's a little bit more recent. During the 1990s, two separate 737s crashed, and investigators had no idea why. They were able to solve the accident because one plane that had issues was lucky enough to land. They then figured out that all three planes had issues with the rudder systems, and that's what caused the crash. The FAA mandated that all faulty rudder systems to be replaced by the year 2002. So, looking at history, we see that planes who have had design flaws go on to be safer airplanes. The 737-200 in this case became a safer airplane after the fact, and so did the DC-10. By the way, videos on the 737 rudder malfunctions are coming. Make sure you're subscribed for that. Talking about safety, the 737 MAX is undergoing a lot of scrutiny right now, and scrutiny is a good thing. Usually when the FAA certifies a plane, Europe's EASA is like, that's good enough for us, come on over to Europe, you can fly here. But with the MAX, Europe is looking to do its own independent testing. They will not be relying on the FAA to do all the testing. The same goes for Canada. They'll be doing their own testing as well. Other countries like India want to run their own independent tests as well. All of this additional scrutiny can find problems that Boeing or the FAA might have missed. For example, on the 20th of December 2019, Boeing was ready to launch the Starliner capsule to the space station on a test flight. The launch went off without a hitch, but the spacecraft failed to reach the intended orbit because the spacecraft's internal clock was off, and so it burned through a lot of its fuel prematurely. The mission to dock with the space station was scrubbed, and the capsule returned to Earth 2 days later. As Starliner was in orbit, people on the ground sifted through the code and they found the issue. They also found something else in the code. They found that the thrusters on the service module was programmed to fire in the wrong way. If the disposal burn were to be done correctly, it would add more separation between the crew capsule and the service module. But with the way the code was written, there was a high chance that both the service module and the crew capsule could have collided. The investigation went deeper, and NASA found that there were deficiencies in the way code was being written at Boeing, and that NASA's oversight of Boeing was lacking. The only reason they found these bugs before it was too late was due to the increased scrutiny. Now, Boeing is sifting through almost 1 million lines of code just to see if anything else is wrong. In the case of the MAX, it has several nation states looking at every nut and screw on the plane, making sure that it's airworthy. You now have multiple entities making sure that the fix has been done and that it's been done right. The next thing that will really entice airlines is the fact that Boeing is desperate. The plane maker has lost quite a lot of orders this year, and they need a big order to show everyone that the MAX is still a great plane. This means that Boeing is at the negotiating table. The next airline who places a sizable order for the MAX will receive a substantial discount. In the case of most plane orders, if it's a sizable order, airlines do get a nice discount. That's why you see low-cost airlines placing massive orders for planes. But in the case of the MAX, those discounts will be steep. So, if an airline is looking to modernize its fleet, the MAX is quite a good buy for them. The last factor I'm going to consider is the trickiest. It is incredibly hard to quantify, and it behaves in unpredictable ways. And that is you and me. Well, not you and me specifically, but the general population. If no one decides to fly on the MAX, the 737 MAX will be doomed. We cannot rely on history this time, as I do not know how people reacted to the DC-10 or the 737-200, as I was not born when those crashes happened. And even if I did have that data, I doubt it would be of much use, as social media has changed our behavior so much. But we can still make educational guesses. A few days ago, the House Committee report on the 737 MAX came out, and it really criticized Boeing for its shortcomings. The AvGeek community was on the edge of its seat, and Twitter was awash with comments. This here is the interest for the term Boeing 737 MAX on Google. You can see a massive spike on the 10th of March 2019 to the 16th of March 2019, and after that, interest pretty much dies down. The average person is no longer concerned with the 737 MAX. All this means is that people aren't actively searching for the term right now. At one point, people were concerned about the MAX, and airlines gave people the option of not flying on a MAX if they chose to. The way we humans work is by latching onto the first bit of information we hear about something. For a lot of people, the first time they heard about the MAX was when the two planes went down. That's what they associate the MAXes to. But I feel that once the planes are up and flying, that apprehension will slowly erode away, especially if the airfares are cheap. And over time, it will fade from people's memory. One thing that Boeing could do that is a bit ethically shady is to rebrand the MAX as the 737-8 and the -9. This means that the average person is not even going to know that they're on a MAX. But do you think it's ethical to do that? Let me know down in the comments. So based on all of these factors, I do think that the MAX will continue to sell, and let's just hope that Boeing as a company has learned its lesson and has fixed all that's wrong with the company and the plane. So what do you think? Do you think the 737 MAX will sell? Moreover, will you opt to not fly on a MAX in the future? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this episode of Mini Air Crash Investigation. I know it's been a little different. A big thank you to iTrapper for letting me use his amazing footage on my videos. If you like the videos that I make, do consider liking and subscribing. It will really help the channel grow. I'll catch you guys next time. Stay safe.